One of the things I like to remind people is that they're people.
Yes.
They're just like you and I.
Yeah.
It's like your friends. It's like your buddies.
It really
right?
is.
They're involved in the community.
I think deep down, most of them are really good, and they mean when they're trying to do good things, whether you agree with them or not. You want to go get your truck fixed where you want to get your truck fixed. You trust the repair shop, and to be honest, most of the independent repair shops, a lot of them are better, more qualified, I feel, than some of the dealerships. That just costs that customer or that farmer or whoever, that dump truck driver, a fortune hauling that truck. It's just not fair. It's not right.
Once it affects you and something actually happens to you where you get it, it clicks. I'm here with Jerry Bender, who's Vice President of Midwest Wheel Companies. Welcome, Jerry.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Happy to have you.
Thank you.
And you're here doing a fly-in, and you're advocating on behalf of Right to Repair, right?
I am, yep. We've been meeting with mostly members of the Senate for this trip since the bill's in the Senate. Just had a lunch with our Iowa Congresswoman, but most of our meetings were at the Senate this week.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about your day and what that process was like for you. I think this is not your first time doing that, right?
No, I actually got into this heavy a year ago at this event. The president of our company, Mike Callison, got asked by Tina Hubbard from HDA if he would like to attend this event. And he said, well, that's not really my cup of tea or my bag. He says, but I got the perfect guy to send out. And he asked me if I would come out, and I just got the bug and have really enjoyed it. You know, growing up in Iowa, you are around a lot of politicians, being the first to caucus. Well, if we haven't messed that up, but, you're just around it a lot, and it's fun. And, you can get real close. You can get a lot closer to the politicians than people think. All you got to do is ask for meetings, and they'll usually give you the time. So,
I mean, tell me a little bit more about that, because I think there's a lot of trepidation around talking to a politician and what that's like. And one of the things I like to remind people is that they're people.
Yes,
they're just like you and I.
They are.
So when you say get close to a politician, it's not even really you talking politics, right? Like, what were your conversations with the Congresswoman like?
So with the Congresswoman, it was very good. She shared a story about she got to go to the first mass that the Pope Leo gave. And so that was a really fun story to hear. But, I actually live in Congresswoman Miller Meek's district. So, and it's a very tight district. I think one election she only won by like 6 votes. It's very tough. So, just, people that know people there. We're a rural state.
Mm-hmm.
It's small. It's a small state. So it's really easy to connect the dots really quick to find common interest or common people that and we definitely did that today. I was in a lunch with her that had to do with the PAC people that had donated through PAC funds. So we didn't talk a lot of policy today. You can't really do that in those, but we just visited. She gave us an update of what she's doing. And then afterwards, we had a nice chat because I met with her several times, and I offered up to host an event at our place for her campaign. And, they do that all around the state. They'll go to people's homes and then have little town halls or whatever. So we invited her to our place to do that. And yeah, she's really, really neat person. Had a great time. And this morning we met with our senator. Well, we didn't meet with Senator Ernst. We met with one of her staffers, but I was out here a month ago with Iowa Motor Truck Association, and we met with her. I couldn't really talk about the Right to Repair Act. It really wasn't on ATA's agenda, but we've just met Senator Ernst several times. You just kind of get to know who your politicians are in Iowa for some reason. I don't know how better to explain it. But
yeah, it's like your friends. It's like your buddies.
It really
right?
is.
They're involved in the community. It's a small town, like you said, and you kind of have that opportunity. And I think you told me a story about there's a barbershop involved.
Yeah,
and you're a little bit more involved in politics. Tell me.
Well, it's actually my wife. My wife Amanda. She ran a barbershop in Pleasantville, Iowa. It's a little small town and about 1,500 people. It's like 25 miles southeast of Des Moines. And, during the caucus season, every presidential candidate's in Iowa for months. And it almost gets daunting, how many events there are. But, she's met a lot of great politicians and presidential candidates. They stop and they like to go to the barbershops and talk to people, or the
Hmm.
coffee shops right across the road. They just love being in that setting, in that rural setting. So we've met a lot of them over the years.
Yeah.
I think politicians overall get a pretty bad rap.
Yeah.
No matter what side you're on, you've always got people that think politicians are bad or they're this or that. I think deep down, most of them are really good and they mean well and they're trying to do good things, whether you agree with them or not. And, there's bad ones.
Hmm.
There's people out there that don't have good intentions, but I think most of the politicians are good people,
Yeah.
just trying to do things for us.
So every politician gets their haircut,
Yeah,
just like you and I.
They do, or they go at least visit the barbershops,
Yeah.
and they, they're just around. You see them everywhere. They try to visit all 99 counties in Iowa, and they make several trips through all of them. Especially, we're close enough to Des Moines, to where a lot of them would stay that they're, you get a lot of traffic from them
Yeah.
in our area. So
I love that. And
Yeah.
it's such a relatable story because we all live somewhere.
Yep.
We all have officials who are in charge of, making changes to what's happening in our local towns.
Yep.
And it's our job to speak up and let them know what are our concerns.
Yeah.
So when you boil it down to just that and having a conversation, having a beer at the bar with your buddy, I mean, why should it be any different than talking to a
Exactly.
politician?
Yeah, exactly.
Tell me a little bit about you growing up and where you grew up and how you even got involved in the heavy duty industry, because I think it's a really interesting story.
So, I grew up in the same community. I'm talking about Pleasantville. Graduated with like a class of 49 people. I, dabbled in, thought I'd go to school. I really wanted to be a carpenter, to be honest.
Mhm.
And then at that time, the union carpenters at business work was slow. I ended up going to work at a dairy, and somehow I worked my way into the truck shop in a maintenance apprentice job, and wasn't a very good mechanic, but I gravitated towards managing the parts room, and I liked doing all that. And then a couple of years later, I ended up being the fleet manager, and one of our suppliers is Midwest Wheel Companies, who I work for now. And so I done business with Midwest Wheel for several years, and just, loved what I was doing. I went back to school at night and really got into HR. I was handling employee and labor relations stuff with the Teamsters for the dairy, and
Wow.
really enjoying that. And then I got the president of Midwest Wheels, John Miner, at the time, reached out to me, wanted to know if I'd be interested in being the branch manager at their store, at their Des Moines location. And I loved their company, and I'd worked at AE Dairy for 20 years, so I was ready to try something new.
Mm-hmm.
So I went there and kind of progressed there, kind of moved up the chain at Midwest Wheel, got really involved in Iowa Motor Truck Association, IMTA, really like dealing on that. I'm on the board there now, and we come out here, the call on Washington, like I said, a month ago. But really just got into that. I wasn't really good at selling parts or none of that. Midwest Wheel sells parts, but I wasn't good at that. I was more on the people managing side and operations. But then, this thing, I'd been hearing about right to repair for every year since I'd started Midwest Wheel for the last 12 years.
Wow.
There were people like Mark Karen. He was a guy that I listened to all the time at the annual meetings, how hard they were fighting for this. And it was, people like that, and Tina Hubbard and Edward Quo and from CVSN. And I really at that time didn't know much about auto care. I didn't know who they were and how that fell in until a couple of years ago. And then I just, I came to this event last year and I just really liked it. I liked people. I met Bill Hanby. I really liked him. I liked Lisa. I just, Mick Nardelli. I just met all these people and I was like, man, this is cool. I just like doing this. I don't like to lose. So
Who does?
So I was like, we're going to get sponsors, and it's, I want to help finish this thing off for all the hard work people did before. So, and our customers is, customers we like to call them partners, but, they're fixing trucks. They're running their own businesses, fixing trucks, and they don't have the time to come out to DC and do this to where I do on their behalf. So that's who we're fighting for. So all of our independent repair shops, can continue repairing whatever vehicle they want to repair or have the ability to repair. So,
That's right.
yeah.
And right to repair, it sounds like it really crept up in your business. So you started hearing about it the past 12 years, which is really
Yeah.
interesting because we've been at this for quite some time.
Yeah.
We call it right to repair 1.0, 2.0, and
Yeah.
3.0, right?
Yes.
We started so long ago, and
Yeah.
the laws have kept evolving, and we've had to evolve along with it.
Yeah.
I really appreciate the fact that you heard it, you noticed it, and you decided that, hey, you were going to be a part of it and want to do something about it.
Well, and I was trying to find my own place in our company. Like I said, our companies, we distribute truck parts, and we're really good at it. We've been in business 114 years. We're fifth generation, family owned, and 40% of our company is owned by the employees in an ESOP. And we, a few years ago, worked on our mission statement, and one of the sentences in our mission statement was we support the industry, and that finally clicked with me, like, this is something that I can do, where, like our VP of purchasing, he's dealing with our suppliers, and, we have our finance department. Anyway, this is just kind of like, this is something that I can do, and to where nobody else has to do any heavy lifting. I can take this role on. And our president of our company, Mike Callison Jr., is so supportive.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm like, are you okay if I do all this traveling? He said, absolutely. That's what I want. I want the people on my staff to be involved. And it doesn't mean it has to be a Midwest Oil event. It's just an industry event. I want you involved. And he's supported this, 100%. He's on the board of HTA Truck Pride, who's heavily involved in this. And with Tina Hubbard, and Tina and Mike talked about it. And yeah, they're like, you're all in. Just, work hard at it, do your best.
Wow. How we are so grateful for the support that your company brings, for the support that HDA Truck Pride brings, because it only takes one person with one of these contagious ideas to say, hey, I want to help and I want to spread the message, because this fight, it's not about dollars as much as people think it is. It's about voices.
Yes.
Right. And it's about the voice of the driver, the voice of the consumer, the voice of the people that this actually affects, right? Like, this is at its core what politics really is. And, there's a story that you told me about, you're really working to educate people within your company too about this, right? So you're an advocate and you're working to create other advocates in your company.
Correct.
And you were sharing with me, one of the things that we do here at AutoCare is a letter campaign to elected officials saying, hey, we need you to support right to repair.
Yes.
And we ask people who are contacts in our member companies to please send this letter. It's pre-populated, but you can edit it and say, what you really feel about it and how it affects you. And you kind of took that campaign and you were advocating that with your employee base, right?
Yeah. So, I definitely, I talked with a lot of our main members of our Iowa Motor Truck Association, because they're all large fleet owners. But then within our, let's say what I call our delivery network, we have a lot of repair shops. That's who this really affects.
Right.
And, being rural Iowa, you don't want to have to send a truck 40 miles to Des Moines to get it fixed. And so I started reaching out to our bigger repair shops first, and I was telling them, some of them didn't know that this was going on. So I reached out, and I, one in particular, I won't mention their name, but I said, hey, would you be willing to write a letter? And I knew we had the form letter and stuff, but I was like, I like the personal side of it more, like write my own letter. And this particular owner of this company said, hey, I'd love to. He says, but I fix trucks. That's what I do. And would you be willing to help me out with that? So then I helped him out, and I made sure I understood the history of his company, and I wrote a nice little thing, sent it to him to sign off, and then he sent it on to his Congress officials. So yeah, and then just today, I got a commitment from Lisa Fauché to attend our fall sales meeting.
Wow.
And we're going to have her be one of the keynote speakers talking to our outside sales team on how to educate their customers on right to repair so that they really know what's going on, so then they can get them on board with reaching out to their politicians in their districts. So, so Lisa just committed that today. So that was a big win for us, having her, because, we got 50 some salesmen on the street, and they're calling on all these repair shops every day. So they have a big voice.
What a great opportunity. And I think it's just a really simple way. I love that you share, like, this wasn't a huge commitment on your behalf, right? Like
Mm.
you're talking to your employees about it, you're sharing information about it, giving them the opportunity to engage where they can,
Yep.
but you're not forcing it
Nope.
on
Not
them
at
at
all.
all, right? Like
Nope.
this issue resonates with a lot of people. And normally once we start sharing information
Yeah.
about it, it has this visceral response and people
Yep.
get really amped up about it. And we're lucky in that because, sometimes it takes people, to realize that in order to act, right? Like what is the thing that makes you feel, okay, well, maybe you should act upon it.
I've been explaining it to like some of our employees, because they ask, so you're in DC again, what's going on? I tell them and they say, so what is this? What's the right, like I'm talking maybe warehouse employees or people on our sales counter. And I say, well, it's kind of like this, that how would you like to be told you couldn't go see Dr. Johnson? You had to go see Dr. Jones because that was the rules. And they're like, no, I want to go see my own doctor. I said, that's what right to repair is. You want to go get your truck fixed where you want to get your truck fixed. You trust the repair shop. And to be honest, most of the independent repair shops, a lot of them are better, more qualified, I feel, than some of the dealerships. And, they go through a lot of training and there's, a lot of, they're just as qualified. And, so that's how I try to explain it to them. It's like we're taking away a choice for our customer on what they can do. And it's driving business now away from them to the dealerships, which, and the dealerships have their place. I mean, the dealerships are great. They do great work. They have great service, great parts supply, everything, but there's also other choices. And
That's right.
That's the message.
Yeah.
I'm trying to explain to like people in my circle is on how to talk about it.
Exactly. I mean, we really appreciate that. It's fun and it's not fun when you try to boil this down to, people that you're talking to. Like I talked to my family about this because, like how do you explain to your family what you do? It can be complex. And, my brother called me the other day and he says, hey, I had to change the brakes on, my car. It was a Toyota Camry and like I had to go to the dealer for some reason because something about the part and this and that. And it was really expensive. And I was like, this is my job.
Yes.
Like,
That's what
this is my job. That is what
Yes.
this is. And he's like, oh, like now I get it. And I'm like, yeah, like do you want to pay that at the dealer? He's like, no. He's like, I don't mind going to the dealer, but like I would have liked to shop around for a cheaper part and a cheaper job, this because there's a independent down the street from us that he's been going to for years with one of his other vehicles. But since he bought the newer vehicle, he's had to go to the dealer. And I'm like, this is the point, So
exactly right.
Once it affects you and something actually happens to you where you get it, it clicks.
Yeah.
And then you really start to become an advocate for that issue. We're so thrilled and so lucky about that. So one of the other things I wanted to briefly touch upon was you're really consistent in your advocacy. So this is not the first time that you've been to Washington, D.C. And I find that so admirable because Congress people change,
Yes,
right? There's
they do.
a changing of a guard every so often. And, we host a legislative summit every other year where we come and we go to Capitol Hill, we talk to our legislators, but this advocacy where you're coming into DC every so often in between those visits to help keep that top of mind.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a commitment,
It is.
but it is something that we appreciate because that helps that continue that drumbeat of that bill, right?
Yeah. And well, and DC is a fun place to visit because in your free time, you get to go look, everything that you should do while you're in DC is free.
That's right.
And everything, you can spend days and never really truly appreciate what's here. My wife and I had a few hours yesterday and we went back to the National History Smithsonian.
Oh, yeah.
We've been there probably 3 or 4 times and we still haven't, So, yeah, I mean, people should come here more and you should try to meet with them in your district. I try to, go to set up meetings in some of the senators' offices, and they have, most of them have rural district offices. I'll have 2 or 3. And yeah, just try to get involved and meet with them, tell them who you are and what you're about. We've had a lot of good history with Senator Ernst in particular. She actually endorsed my daughter to be a possible candidate for the Naval Academy when she was 18 years old. So we come out then and met with Senator, several years ago. And yeah, you should use your politicians. That's what they want. That's what you're there for. Most people are they think you can't get to them. Well, you can.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very easy. The only thing what frustrates me is how long it takes them to make decisions sometimes. Like I want to have a meeting right now, and then an hour later, I want you to email me saying, hey, yeah, I'm going to co-sponsor that.
Hey,
it doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
Which I'm struggling. I'm learning that right now. I'm in that learning process. It's been nice, being around Lisa and McNardelli. Like, they're giving you good advice. They've been at this a lot of years, and they give you, don't be impatient, just be patient and keep doing what you're doing, and you'll get the results. So I can kind of see that happen. I mean, the bill's now in the House and the Senate. It's never been there. So yeah, we got to be getting close.
That's right. And that's the reason why we're doing this podcast today. I mean, we hit a really big milestone with the Repair Act being introduced in both the House and the Senate.
Yeah.
It's never happened before.
Yeah.
So we really want to continue the drumbeat that we're doing here at Auto Care and with all of our partners to make sure that we're championing that bill on the Hill. We're getting more people educated. We're sending more letters, and we're documenting examples where we can't repair the vehicles and the effect that it has on our communities. This is such a tremendous, tremendous issue.
Yeah, I talked to one of our repair shops. It's probably a 50-mile drive from Des Moines. And I called because I wanted to know, like, is this really happening? So I called these guys, and they're full service repair. They do everything from engine overhauls down to brake jobs, right? And I called them and I said, how often are you running into an issue where you have to send the truck to a dealer because you can't access it? And I was told now that it's up to 4 to 6 times a month.
You're kidding.
Yeah, and that's a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, that just costs that customer or that farmer or, whoever, that dump truck driver, a fortune hauling that truck. And it's just not fair. It's not right.
Right.
It's not fair. Like I said, it shouldn't be like, you should be able to choose your own doctor, and so it's happening more. I didn't, I had to do a little fact check on my own, but it is happening more and more and more.
Wow.
So.
And I mean, if you think about the downstream effects, especially when we're talking about heavy duty vehicles, right? There's a million different kinds of heavy duty vehicles, everything from the semi truck that brings your groceries to the construction vehicle that brings the supplies to the ambulances, you said, so, to the farm equipment. And then you really start to wonder, like, if you can't fix these in the right amount of time, the downstream effects, the delays, what does that mean for me?
It's huge.
Right?
Yeah.
Am I going to get my groceries?
Yeah.
Am I going to get my water?
Or your medicine or...
Right?
Yeah, like Tina Hubbard loves the slogan, and if you bought it, a truck brought it.
That's right.
Love hearing that, and it's a fact, and we need to keep them moving. So
Tina gets the biggest shout out ever for that statement because it is emblazoned in my brain. It will not leave because it's true. It's true. And it's a scary thought wondering what would happen in a world without right to repair. That's why it's important that we keep fighting.
Yes.
So this has been a really important update, Jerry. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.